Hello, hello, hello. Who do we have out there in the void of space tonight for a big day indeed for Space Engineers? Let's have a little look.
Did you want to just give a little kind of backstory as to the development of this next update? And obviously it's been some time now. And also, why are we doing this public beta today for this update?
Mm-hmm. So it's a couple of months that we have been working on this, like a lot of months. This Automatons update, like the idea, we came up with it like long time ago, and then we put it to our plan, and we wanted to release it, and it was really a lot of work because making AI in-game, that can work reliably in different situations and edge cases, it basically requires a lot of work. So that's why this update took longer than usual. And we also wanted to deliver it in a very good quality and not something, that people will not enjoy. So, and that's actually one of the reasons why we are doing the public test or the beta right now, is to make sure that community is happy with what is in this update, and we want to get their feedback, and so that's the main reason. And so what it should be about, or what is inside this update, it's focusing on what we originally called Grid AI, which were new blocks and some new functionalities that allow you to create your own drones, or basically ships, small or large, that can be controlled by some AI, so they can be offensive, defensive, just like recording a path and then following the path or following the waypoints, proper pathfinding, collision avoidance, and all those things, and giving more control to players, because that was always a goal for us, is to think about ways where we can add something to the game that players can take and just multiply the possibilities. And actually something that can be configured, like AI, is one of those things that we just add few things. In this case, it's quite complicated things, but still just few things. But then people can combine them and use them in novel ways that we cannot even envision. And some emerging complexity will happen. And that's what we wanted. That's why we think that Automatons is a right thing for a game like Space Engineers.
100%. And I just know that the community, as soon as this drops, even this beta, the community is going to do some incredible things with it. And we're really, really excited to see how you guys get on with it. And we'll be launching it very shortly. So just in a little second here, we'll be smashing the kind of go live button, and it will be available on both PC and Xbox for testing. And the blog post will also go over how you can access this public test. We'll quickly go over the blog post in terms of, and just which runs through all those blocks. I quickly mentioned them before I got you on here. So maybe you can go through the 5 blocks here and explain them.
Yeah, so sure. So we have 5 blocks. We have the AI flight, move, AI basic task, the AI recorder task, the AI defensive combat, and the AI offensive combat. And as you may notice, there are 5 blocks, but 3 different sort of types of block. So we have a movement type, a task type, and a combat type. I think an important thing to note is that you can place all of these blocks on your grid, but only one of each type will be active at the same time. And I think we'll see how that works when we jump in the game, or people already playing the game right now might have already figured this out.
Almost certainly. Already people are making drones.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. So the AI flight block, that's sort of your basic block that controls the movement of your grid. So it sort of controls the thrusters and the gyroscopes pretty much like how you would in a cockpit. It doesn't really provide its own sort of inputs, except for sort of keeping a minimal altitude, and in case there's like collision avoidance has been enabled, it will also sort of do that sort of part. But it doesn't really provide any instructions. So to get your drone to actually do something, you need either a task or a combat, or both blocks. So let's see, we have the AI basic task block. That sort of provides you with a lot of basic functionality. So it can follow a player, it can follow a home destination that can either be a GPS or a beacon. So you can have your drone follow another grid around. or just a player. And it can also do autopilot functionality, which you may be familiar with from the remote control block that's been in the game for a very long time. So this block sort of, it deals with what does the grid do? Like, where does it move to? What's our sort of mission? What's our goal? What are we going to do? It's a task. Then we also have the AI recorder. This is also a task type block. And this allows you to basically record a path very precisely. So you enable it, you set it to record, you fly your grid some path that you want it to fly. It records any actions that you trigger. So let's say you undock or disconnect from a connector or whatever. You fly somewhere, and then I don't know, you switch on your lights or whatever. Really, any sort of action that you want to do with this thing, you can record and then replay that path and action sequence. And then, of course, this is a really powerful thing that you can combine with the event controller, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Oh, the event controller! I'm so excited to get to the event controller.
It's a game changer. This is like everything is gonna go upside down now. It's really cool. The defensive combat block. So what this does is basically it recognizes if there's an enemy or a neutral nearby. You can sort of set it up however you want, and then you can make your grid flee to a home location. If like an enemy has been detected. So let's say you have some drone that follows you around with the basic task block. That maybe that's a drone that carries a lot of cargo for you when you're out there, maybe mining some resources. You're dumping it in your sort of cargo carrying drone. But then an enemy appears. Oh no. Well, you can, if you have a defensive block, you can get this grid to flee to its home base and basically wait there until the threat is gone. It will also basically lock onto other targets, similar to how players can lock onto stuff, and fire any turrets that you have on that grid. So it also really works as, like, let's say, a passive base defense system. If you want to have something that can reach a little bit further than the regular turret AI, you can use a defensive block and shoot down stuff that comes at you. Then I think, and this is probably my personal favorite, we have the offensive block, and this one really does a lot of things. It allows you to basically build a sort of fighter or battleship or artillery thing, or even a suicide drone. What it does is you can set it up, and similar to the defensive block, it will recognize enemies or neutrals, and then perform an attack run, or an attack pattern, I should say, upon finding the enemy. So you can set it up to either stay at a certain range, so let's say between 1,000 and 1,500 meters, and use let's say a railgun to shoot at the target, or you can set it up to circle or orbit around the target, depending on if you're on a planet, you probably don't want it to orbit, but you can just circle around it. If you're in space, then orbiting makes a lot more sense. So you can then set it up to orbit the target, and depending on, again, there's a lot of options here, but depending on how you set it up, you can have it fire like static weapons, so any sort of Gatling guns or artillery cannons or rocket launchers, or a railgun, or you can just use your turrets or both to fire at some enemy and do a circling maneuver around it. Then you have the hit and run pattern. The hit and run pattern allows you to set up basically like a small grid fighter. I think it works the best for, but I'm sure people will come up with creative things to use this for. What it does is, and this is one of the things that we teased, I think, in it's been a while actually, a couple of months ago. It allows you to set up a grid so that it sees an enemy. Let's say the enemy is at 1,500 meters. It flies towards the enemy, and then unloads all the weapons you have. And then once it's close to it, it sort of turns around and retreats, and then comes back and makes another pass. And this allows for some really cool dynamic sort of action. You can also, all of these offensive ones, I'm pretty sure, maybe not all of them, but most of them you can set up to also have sort of perform evasive maneuvers, so they're a bit harder to actually hit in return. And you can do really cool stuff with it. And then finally, I shouldn't forget, we have the intercept pattern, and this basically allows you to set up a drop pod or whatever, like a suicide drone or a missile, anything you really want. And of course, and this is like where the real magic sort of happens, is when you combine all these things with the event controller. So let's say I want to have an offensive block, or offensive drone that attacks targets. then you set it up as like, oh, actually, this thing is starting to take damage, or it runs out of ammo, or whatever reason. I switch now to a different behavior, and I actually go back to my mothership and dock, or to my base and dock, and reload and rearm and refuel, and then I go back into the fight. Like,
So
really, the sort of, there's so many things.
that's such a good example there, and it's just like, that's the point. The AI blocks can be used on their own. You don't need to use the event controller, and you don't need to use the event controller with AI blocks. You can use the event controller with lots of the existing functions of the game, or you can combine them for just just that's all I can say. So
there's so many cool things. Like, I don't think we ourselves really know how far this will go, and this is part of why we do this beta test as well. Like, what crazy stuff will people come up with, and I'm sure you guys out there, you'll probably come up with something crazy that we never considered, and that might break the game. Who knows? In that case, that was a really good reason to do the beta test, because then we figure this out and we learn from it.
So next we come up to this this mythical event controller here. Let's learn about the event controller then, Sander. I should also mention that these AI blocks are available on small and large grid. Same with the event controller. They all are. So
Yep, you can use it on whatever you want, on a grid, or like a base, or on a small grid, large grid, whatever you want, really. The event controller. This is maybe the most powerful tool we've added to SpaceEngineers in the last couple of years. It's really up there. It's super cool. So this block basically allows you to check other blocks for events. So let's say you have a door, and you want to check if the door is open or closed, and do something when the door is opened or closed. And then what you do is you set it up in this block. You select the door. You select what it sort of should do. Is the door open or closed? And then trigger some action. So when there's going to be two, we'll see it when we're in game, but there's going to be two sort of slots that you can put it in. The first slot is for when it's the true action, and the other one is for when it's the sort of the false action. So let's say you have the door opened, trigger slots in the first action, and then you can turn on a light, or maybe vent your air system, so you can have an even more automated airlock. Probably a simpler airlock as well that requires less blocks than previously. You could have it set up if a block takes damage, if a grid takes damage. Maybe you want to do something. A booby trap. Grid takes damage, set off a warhead. Really, the sort of the things are endless what you can do.
So a lot of these functions would have been locked exclusively to the programmable block in the past. Actually, if anything, I don't know if there's new functions you can do in terms of what's wireless, but I believe probably most of it could have been done with the programmable block. And I also think the programmable block still has some further advanced potential, to if you really want to go out there. But obviously, this event controller makes that automation a lot more accessible to players, which is a great thing as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's sort of the let's say primary reason why we did this. Like, a lot of these stuff you could do with scripts and programmable blocks. Of course, that's not really accessible to a large part of our community, being on the consoles. But also a lot of servers don't really allow it for various reasons. And what this does is it makes this just so much easier. It allows automation for everybody, really, not just for people who are able to program or you have to download a mod, but you can now just make it. And it's so flexible. You can combine all these things with all the blocks, you have an event to trigger some other event, or go nuts with it, really.
It's even better for Xbox players, because Xbox players don't have client-side scripts. So actually, where you could have some on dedicated servers, now Xbox players playing in single player or hosted games can now actually automate ships where they wouldn't have been able to before. So that's also really exciting.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I just want to show this video, guys, as well. Here we go. So this was another example that we actually posted, but it just gives you an idea about the event control. I wanted to show it live today, but I didn't have it set up right before the stream. But basically, again, this is another example for you guys for a use of the AI blocks and event controller, where this mining rover is actually mining the rock, and when the cargo container is full up on the back, the little drone head there that detaches, it's connected via a small connector as well. That is right, yeah, so the looping is interesting. So yeah, then it automatically disconnects flies to the nearby deposit, like where it will actually release the ore, then it will fly back to the rover when it's been emptied and reattach automatically. Like all of that can be done and automated. So you can just focus on where you're mining and where you're going, and this drone will just keep going back and forth, unloading. So you never have to drive your rover back. So that's another example. I mean, I think Sander did a really good example earlier of how a drone that might get damaged or run out of ammunition could go back to base and restock, refuel, repair, and then go back into the action. And that's kind of like a combat example. And here we have a more kind of engineering example here of, making your mining more efficient. So that was just an example which I was going to have in today in game, but I actually ended up not having it in the end. But maybe we can get some other stuff in here. So let's get. I'm going to get the AI blocks here, bring them out into the light, and you guys can see them here. Actually, do one at a time. This is the large grid version, of course. And I saw some people commenting, and we should definitely give a shout out to the amazing artists, because all of the new blocks, both the AI blocks and the event controller, small and large, look great. And even if you don't use the blocks, just as decoration, there's no doubt that these blocks, let me get the event controller on my toolbar as well here. Yes, because there was some people were wondering what this might be, but this is actually the back of the event controller. So with the event controller, it looks really cool and technical, but also you have a new style of floor, wall, or ceiling, whatever you may need. So once again, blocks and Space Engineers can be utilized in more than the way that they're kind of mainly intended. Okay, let's have a look at something Aragaf's got. So Aragaf, what do we have here? You made yourself a little friend here. Okay, we're going to follow him. We got the mini mule. So this drone's obviously set to follow him here. I'm wondering if it's just showing mainly how, you can have a cargo mule that's kind of following you around as you're doing stuff and building and mining or whatever. And rather than having to run back and forth to a ship to actually unload and get stuff, you can actually have this basically as a portable cargo expansion. So I think that's what's going on there. But it's working very nicely there. Beforehand, this wouldn't have been possible. So you might have had to press a button or use timer blocks, or even if you had something crazy going on, maybe even scripts if you wanted some really crazy airlock. But now what will happen is if I come into this, actually it's pretty good set up already. So that was actually didn't have to say anything. It was so quick. So to watch that, watch this here. This is a legit airlock. You ready? We're gonna walk, and I'm in a pressurized space now. So let's just walk through. And just like that, I have gone from a pressurized space to space without having to hit anything. Thank you, Aragaf. That's a great use of the event controller here. So if we come into the event controller here, are you guys ready for all of the options? Here we go.
There's so many of them.
I'm not even ready for this. So we've got, the options to set up the action set, and we have the events. So I'm going to open this event screen. You guys are going to... There might be some tears. Hopefully tears of joy. Let's go. So I'll just quickly read them. So these are all events that can trigger actions of our blocks. Altitude, angle change, block added, block removed, block integrity, cargo filled, cockpit occupied, connector connected, door opened, as we're setting right now, gas tank filled at a certain percentage, landing gear locked, piston position, power output, stored power. So these are all the ones we have currently, but this should allow you to actually, perform most actions that you could ever want to do, actually. And we have the selected blocks here as well that are involved in this. So we have the input, and so you have the event, door opens, input, door, you might want to rename them actually. Sliding door, interior is closed, input storing, exterior is open. And the action slot 1 is the output here. So if we just, you can see, we can open this up. Go on, go ahead.
So this is actually this. Well, at least I hope. But this should make it, a little bit clear what the event controller is doing. So it'll tell you what event you have selected, what the input is for that event, like which block you have, or multiple blocks you can have. You can select more than one block, and what the output is. Yeah, that's the thing. Like if you add multiple blocks, then you can also have the button all the way at the bottom that says AND gate, and then it needs to trigger basically true for all of those blocks. So you can either say like I have 2 blocks selected, let's say, and if one of them is open or closed, I do a thing, or you can say if with the AND gate, if both blocks are stay true, then do something. So with this, you can combine a bunch of stuff and make it even more advanced. But I think to actually get this to work, I'm not sure, because I'm looking at your stream a little bit right now, a little behind. I think you have to actually add them to the list, or did you already do that?
No, because this is
never mind. Yeah.
I think it's already set up here.
Yeah.
Selected. So got a search bar in there as well.
Oh yeah.
Might need that later on a massive grid there. So yeah, that's gonna be. So really, guys, go to town, go crazy with this event controller. Let's see, there is some stuff happening. I'm not sure. Let's see. Oh, I think we've got some of the drone combat going on here, I assume. Let me just fly over here, see what's happening. I think, let me just jump on this. I believe this is a drone. Yeah, it is a drone. So we've got a fighter converted into a drone here. It looks like it's it's actually chasing down this space pirate security drone here. I guess they're both, they're both AI here, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a thing, right? Like battle bots or whatever. We're going to see people make cool stuff that just fight each other.
Let's have a look at what he's got set up here. So he's got set up to enemies. Closest target is the priority. It's switching very quickly though. 5 seconds is the search. Power systems are there, and it's got circle and orbit as the option. And it's also got the manual facing priority being front. Here we go, because they're kind of like jousting here, right? You can see the security drones, it's panning to the right.
So that one's like, it's actually trying to evade the other one, I believe. I mean, it does a pretty good job actually at it. It seems the rockets are not really.
Oh yeah, the rockets of the. Let's come to the blue fighter here, which is trying to shoot it, and they're actually at a decent range here as well.
And this is the thing as well. I just saw a question that was an interesting one.
Okay.
So, why does the AI grid need thrusters in all directions, and why does the AI face the enemy when it's forward direction when intercepting? So why does it need thrusters in all directions? Well, otherwise it can't move in all directions. So I'm pretty sure the AI actually works if you don't have thrusters in all directions, but it might struggle a bit actually going where you want it to go. It's important that the movement block, so the AI flight block, is placed in the, let's say, the right direction. So there's a front, back, front, rear, left, and right symbol on it, and this basically determines what is the forwards direction of that grid in this case. So similar to a cockpit, if you put a cockpit sideways and sit in it, then that side becomes your forward. If you place the flight movement block, with the forward side facing to the left or whatever, then the left side is now considered to be the forward side for that block. And again, this is something that you can actually use and sort of exploit in some ways. If you have 2 of these blocks and you switch between activating one of them and then activating the other one, you can basically on the fly switch whichever direction, the forward direction of your grid. And I should say, so the flight block, the flight movement block, it has a forwards direction, and the recorder block has a forwards direction. And the rest of the blocks don't really care too much about which direction they're in. It's not really relevant for them. Of course, the combat blocks do have some sort of directionality when it comes to what direction your weapons are facing, but it takes the direction of what is the flight block. So it's really how you build your system that sort of determines this. And yeah, just make sure that you face them in the right direction that you want them to face.
Someone had made this Intercept drone, which was basically ramming the target. And I was like, oh, this is going to be good. And actually, just to mix things up, actually, the artillery cannon started firing at this kind of, this grid. And it threw it off course and missed. I'm not sure if you were watching it. And then it came around the backside, span around, and kind of came for a second pass. And the turrets and the ship were still shooting at it, but it still eventually managed to get a blow in here and actually took out the front of this ship here. So that was pretty cool. You guys just saw the Intercept, which is your there's another one. You basically saw your PMW. Oh, they're all getting pasted in now. There we go. So we can see the path now that it's recorded. I don't have to manually create it. And now if I come into this, we can repeat the path. And now when we click play, so now it's going to fly back to the first one here.
Something players will probably find out. You can also reverse the order of the path. There's a button in the recorder, and basically hitting that just reverses the entire sequence. And so the recorder is really what you would probably use to make your docking sequence. So you record yourself docking with a station or a ship, and then you can play that, or record undocking. You can play that path.
I confused it. Yeah, exactly, because this is just showing some. This is just showing just basic. I just wanted to test that it was working properly, but of course you can use this and have a much more complicated recording here. And also you saw how it did it every 1.7 seconds. But depending on if you're in open space or what exactly you're doing in the grid, then you could have less of these waypoints. But it's very useful to have this. So again, guys, you come into info, show AI functions, and you need an antenna. And within that recorder block, you actually want to show the path on the HUD. So that should help you there. So thank you, Sander. I'll wrap this up here and do some shout outs, but we will see Sander very soon, guys. Hopefully next Thursday. So well done to Sander's team and the whole team as well. I say you saw some of the artists' work and the programmers' work and the QA. So lots.
It's a lot of work and love and effort went into this.